tip. Coming all 3 speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. They all getting featured. Said it's Tanesha's tip. Coming all 3 speakers. Coming all 3 speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. Yeah. It's your girl Tanesha, straight magic. The greatest book reviews, let's get at it. She not here to offend, she just honest. Bringing words that may leave you astonished. And plus she do shows. She cover all like hands, knees, and toes. Don't lollygag, no, she just rolls. And it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Woo. Ha. Said it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Tanesha's tip. Coming all 3 speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. Said it's Tanesha's tip. Coming all 3 speakers. Coming all 3 speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. Yeah. Hey. It ain't for the clout, it's honest. See the truth when you look beyond it. Book shows, not to mention movies. She give or take in a great way, you'll see. Check it out, see if you agree. If you vibe, guess it's meant to be. And baby, you don't even need the script. Learn it all with Tanesha's tips. Tanesha's tip. Coming all 3 speakers. Yeah. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured.
Hi, and welcome to Tanesha's Tips. Today we are going to finally get done with Divorced Sistas, episode 8, Birds of a Feather. Okay, so I am so excited because I'm actually finishing a series with these reviews or whatever. But as I said at the beginning, this has been a messy good time, and we keep getting messier. Season 2 is actually set up, and we will get to that at the end. So we leave off with Naomi putting everybody on blast and telling them about themselves. And the last person that she put on blast was Rasheeda, when she showed Myron outside her house talking to somebody on the phone and admitting to being in love with her husband. Now, he said all this stuff that made it seem like it was a two-sided situation. However, one can believe that it isn't. But I'm just not too sure. I'm just still like side-eyeing everybody in this situation. So anyway, as it goes, they end up calling both Myron and Pastor Jeff inside and confronting them, I should say. And so Pastor Jeff, he had to look like the man on campus or whatever. And he was like, I am not gay, nor am I bisexual. I love women. This woman, because everybody made a face like, oh, you know what I mean? And so he had to be specific and say he loves his wife, right? So after all that was said and done, Rasheeda said, well, I only got one more thing to say. And she said to Naomi, I am done, which means I guess she finished with her. She ain't no longer her friend or whatever. So whatever she going through is what it is. So she told Bridgett to drive her car and drive them back home or whatever, which means them, Tiffany, because Geneva drove herself. Remember, she had something to do. Anyway, so then Pastor Jeff says, well, Myron, you catch a ride with Tiffany or whatever. And so both Rasheeda and Pastor Jeff ends up leaving, and Bridgett and Tiffany started leaving behind them. And Myron was like, I'm going to get a ride. I'm going to get a ride. I'm just call me a car or whatever. And she was like, I'll take you back. He was like, no, I'm going to call a car. So anyway, Tiffany and Tiffany and Bridgett end up leaving. Myron left as well. Then as soon as they closed the door, then there was a knock at the door, and here come the popo. So they enter the house, because they seen them standing there, and they were like, is Naomi here? And she was like, I'm Naomi. She hands her a packet and says, you've been served. So Geneva takes it from her and reads it because, she's her attorney or whatever. And she's being sued for assault for $50 billion or $50 million, whatever. It's 50 and it's either got an M or a B behind it. But whatever it is, she said that was the amount of money that she had got from the divorce settlement. And everybody knew that he was trying to get his money back or whatever he did. He didn't care. He just wanted to get his money back because he's vengeful. But it's like both of them the same person, because she running around here hurting. She trying to hurt her friends that's actually trying to help her, and she ain't listening to nobody. But anyway, I digress. So then Geneva was like, you need to take this seriously or whatever. This is not good. And Naomi acting like everything is all copacetic and everything. So they end up all leaving, and it goes to Tiffany and Bridgett being in the car, and Tiffany and Bridgett is like, oh man, this gonna be bad if she gets sued or whatever, because she ain't gonna have no money. And they was like, ooh, her broke. And Bridgett was like, oof, and out of all of them, I guess Bridgett, she makes the least amount of money, I guess, but they all drive nice cars. I guess the lowest luxury car would be the Lexus, I guess, the Lexus truck she's driving, because Tiffany drives a Porsche, but she's also in real estate, so that is very lucrative income or whatever. And we find out that she's paying her ex-husband $600 for alimony or whatever. So I wonder what she did. Girl, what you do? Anyway, I guess we'll get that out later. So as they're in the car together, Pastor Jeff and Rasheeda, they seem to be getting along real good. And she was trying to tell him, I told you that Myron, was in love with you and he liked you or whatever. And she said, you are so naive. He was like, am I that naive? I didn't know that he was in love with me and he liked me like that. And she was like, I've been telling you. And he was like, yeah, because that's the best. And she completed his sentence. That's the best assistant you had. And she said, that's why I always side-eyed him. And I was always looking, watching him, just like the other one. So apparently must have been like other females in the mix before or whatever. So anyway, as they was like laughing and joking and everything, they end up where Rasheeda came out of her purse, and she was like, she was like, can you make sure our son takes this? And he was like, what is that? She said, a cup to pee in or whatever. And he said, you want him to take she said, yes, a drug test. She was like, he's just been doing some things that I just don't understand, and I need you to actually make him do this. Are you going to make him do it? And she was like, yeah. She said, I want you to curse him out. And he said, you want me to curse him out? And she was like, yeah, don't be acting like you didn't do it, which she said, don't be acting like you don't curse, which, okay, we saw that last episode when he had this little cursing match with Franklin, which seems so unnatural, but okay, then go off. So anyway, he also, as he was in there joking and stuff with her, he also, I think, kind of slipped in the N-word, which sounded kind of crazy too, but whatever. I was like, okay, I guess if y'all joke and everything like that, everybody don't know how to pass the act after hours, but whatever, it is what it is. So anyway, Tiffany and Bridgett end up pulling into the church, and they part ways because Tiffany says she has a date or whatever. And so Bridgett was like, okay, girl, I'll talk to you later. So Bridgett gets out her car, and she gets to, walking over to her car, and all of a sudden she sees Myron. He's in his car, and he crying. And she said, come here, baby, what's wrong? Now, she got to be nurturing and everything. And she want to see everybody okay, which, okay, it's got to be somebody that's got to be, the nice one. So he gets out the car, and he says, can you help me get the stuff out of my desk? And she was like, why would you do that? He's going to fire me, I know. She said, did he say that? And he said, no, but I know he's going to fire me. And she's like, come back tomorrow when you got a clear head and everything, and it'll be all right. He says, well, what time are you coming in? She was like, 9. And he was like, okay, I'm going to wait for you to come in before I go in there. And so then he wants to ask about Pastor Jeff and how they acted, and was he mad? Was First Lady bad? And she was like, well, First Lady. He was like, uh-huh. So she said, well, you go home and you get some sleep or whatever. She said, and you got to be ready to tell the truth, because she asked him, are you gay? And he was talking about no, and all this other stuff. And she's like, listen, don't lie to me, because I ain't the one to be lying to. You lie to whoever that was on the phone, but don't lie to me. But she also told him, she said, don't be stopping me with these lies. She said, I'm ready to go home. My feet hurt. I hear you, girl. So anyway, As he was backing out, Rasheeda and Pastor Jeff was coming back in. And so Pastor Jeff went in and said he got some more stuff to do or whatever. So Rasheeda was like, okay, cool. So she stayed out with Bridgett, and she said, I saw you talking to him. What did he say? And she said, he's very embarrassed or whatever, and he ain't ready to admit the truth, but he was crying and stuff, thinking that y'all was gonna fire him. And she looked at her. She said, are you gonna fire him? She just looked at her and she said, ooh, just like that. So anyway, that'd be illegal. You can't fire somebody off of their sexuality. That's crazy. I mean, he could file a sexual harassment charge if anything, but I don't know, whatever. So anyway, this is me talking. Anyway, so as they keep going or whatever, they never exchange keys. So I'm like, well, how did you give her keys back? Which I feel like that's something that just slipped through the cracks, and they wasn't thinking that anybody was gonna notice. But I be noticing little stuff like that. Just like last episode when Rasheeda was in the car with the girls and she was driving the expensive car, the expensive gold car. I don't even know what kind of car it is, but it's expensive gold car that you open from the front instead of like from the back up. It's like the front back. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I digress. But anyway, then all of a sudden when they got to Naomi's house, it was her in the SUV. The kids, they were all in the SUV, which was stupid, but whatever. So anyway, fast forward, Rasheeda gets home and she's walking into her bedroom and her son is in there, and clearly he was coming from a safe, and she was like, what are you doing in here? And he was like, oh, I was borrowing a tie from dad. She said the ties are in the closet, which was like the opposite way of the kid. And he was like, he didn't say nothing. He was just looking crazy or whatever. She was like, what's in your hand? He was like, nothing. And she was like, what's in your hand? And he was like, nothing. And so she said, unball your fist. And he unballed it to like a wad of money. And so she was finna snatch the money out. He told her that, stop before I hurt you. And the daughter was looking through the crack in the door. And she kind of flinched or whatever, like she was scared of him or whatever. But the damage was done. He already felt like he could do something to you. So she asked him, are you on drugs? And he was like, no, I'm not on drugs or whatever. So apparently, I guess it's some drugs in the pastor's family or whatever, his dad and his brother or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, she said, it's something because every time you turn around, you ask me for money. I just gave you money. Then you ask your dad for money or whatever. Because remember, early in the season, he was asking for a laptop, right? And I was like, why do he need a laptop? So he must have pawned a laptop for some money. But my thing is, are you on drugs? What is you doing? Why is you trying to steal the money? So he says to her, you're not even going to miss this money and then this and that and third. But when he threatened his mom to hit her and the daughter was standing in the door and he found it out, he ended up, I guess, leaving out. She took that money and he ended up storming out the door. So here comes the daughter talking, Mom, are you okay? Are you okay? Child, then it went to Pastor. So Pastor in his office with his back turned, and he seemed like he just, doing some deep breathing. Now here come Myron talking about, I just came to get to pack up my office. And he was like, why are you packing up your office? And, they had this whole conversation or whatever. And he was like, well, I think you're going to let me go or whatever. And just talking all kinds of crazy. But he just let it be known that, listen, I don't go that way. I'm, in love with my wife or whatever. And you need to get it together. He was like, what about First Lady? He was like, First Lady's First Lady, but I need you in here in the morning to take care of some big case or whatever they doing or whatever. So he looked like he all shocked and surprised, but he like grateful. He like, oh, okay. So anyway, as we continue, we flip over and here come Naomi. Naomi done made it to the hospital with some flowers, okay? She goes in the door or whatever in Franklin's room. Franklin jumps up and he's like, what are you doing here? She was like, oh, I just came to see how she was doing and bring her some flowers or whatever. They had some choice words or whatever. He called security or whatever. And then she ends up dropping the flowers on the lady or whatever. She ends up telling the nurse some things or whatever. But the nurse is like, I understand that, but you got to leave at this point or whatever. But, child, it was just a whole mess. But before Naomi had got there, she had told old boy Bolo, which, again, I forgot his name, but she had told him to meet her at the bank or whatever. So after she leaves there finally and she drops those flowers on the girl's back, she goes to the bank and they get I guess it's in a safety deposit box. She asked the lady to give them some privacy. So she opens up the safety deposit box to Bolo, and she says, "See," and she said $1,000,000. He said, "Oh, you gonna give me at least 10,000?" And she said, "No," and she closed it. He said, "Well, he's like, what I'm gonna do? I ain't gonna do nothing without no money or whatever." So he said, "Well, what do you think?" He said, "What if I just, take it or whatever?" She said, "You ain't gonna take nothing from me, and with all these people around here, you ain't gonna get away with nothing." She said, "You'll get nothing." And so she's closed it up or whatever. And he said, "I knew you wasn't nothing." And so she actually had did like her background on him, and was talking about how she erased everybody with his DNA, and talk about his 9-year-old daughter. And he was like, "Oh, and so he left. I don't blame you, boy. Get gone, because she is full of trouble. She is not the business at all." So anyway, all that happened. Then we fast forward to Tiffany being at home. She gets a phone call from Javonn, and he's like, "Hey, so I got some good news for you." He was like, "Am I calling you too much?" She was like, "Oh, no," because, she's smitten and let Naomi tell her they about ready to get married, which she is going a little bit too fast for me with this whole thing or whatever. But anyway, so he ends up telling her that he liked the house and he wants her to put in an offer. And she's like, "Okay." So then he asked her, how spontaneous is she? And she was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty spontaneous or whatever." So he asked her if they could go out on a date or go out of town on a trip or whatever. And she was like, "To where?" Well, she said, "Okay." And then he said, "You didn't even ask me, where?" She said, "Well, okay, where?" He said, "To Italy with Will and Geneva." And she said, "Wait a minute." She was like, "How are we going to go on their trip?" And she said, "I can't go anyway." She said, "Because I agreed to keep Anika while they were gone." And he was like, "Oh, well, Rasheeda could keep her or whatever." Like, he was very dismissive, right? For this to be maybe possibly his daughter. I'm like, okay, whatever. So anyway, she was like, I don't know. He was like, "Don't back out, don't back out." And she was like, "Well, let me call Geneva, because she's been avoiding me lately and acting kind of different. So I want to make sure this is okay with her before I, come on her trip or whatever." He was like, "Oh, no, I cleared it with Will. It'll be fine." She said, "I know, but this is my friend, and I did agree to keep her daughter," which is right. Like, don't be doing that. Then I wouldn't want to crash nobody's trip either. You know what I'm saying? Especially if she been acting the way she is. Come on, Tiffany, come through with your intuition, because you've been doing good all season. So anyway, she ends up getting off the phone with him, and then it flips over to Geneva. Geneva came home, and her husband's like, "Close your eyes, I got a surprise for you." So she walking in the house with her eyes closed. He says, "I got you a chef." And so when she opens her eyes, guess who's standing in their kitchen? Javonn, child. Okay. So then he asked her, do she want to taste some of this flank steak or whatever that he made? And she was like, "No." He was like, "Okay, because I'm about to get out of y'all hair, but I wanted you to taste it. I want to see the pretty lady's face before I leave." Child. Here come Will talking about, "I'll taste it." So he was like, "Yeah, it's real nice and juicy." And all these have these little sexual innuendos in them or whatever. And they going all over Will's head. He into the steak or whatever. And so Javonn is telling him how he marinated it and this and that and the third or whatever. Then all of a sudden they hear a scream. Well, no. Before that, he says, "Yeah." Will says, "Yeah, I invited him and Tiffany to come on our vacation with us." And she was like, "Well, she's supposed to keep Anika." And so here come Will. "Well, can't Rasheeda keep her?" And he was like, "Because this is our first time even going out of town since we had her." Then all of a sudden you hear a scream, "Ah!" which is the little girl. And so before even Geneva react that that's the little girl, Will reacts. And then she goes running. So the babysitter grabs her, and she have her like in her arms, and she's like, "What happened?" She said, "She fell off the swing." So they're like, "Okay, let's get to the hospital." So okay, we're gonna fast forward. They in the waiting room, whatever, at the hospital. And Tiffany came running in, and she was like, "What are you doing here?" She was like, "What do you mean what I'm doing here? We're friends or whatever, and I will always be here for Anika or whatever you guys need or whatever." She was like, "You're not needed." You could tell it was like, it's some animosity there, but it's like, really though? So anyway, Tiffany didn't end up leaving, but the doctor came out, and the doctor said, because they asked what was going on. She said she was in a CT scan. She was like, "Is that bad?" She was like, "Yeah." So then the doctor came out and was like, "Hey, we need to do a transfusion," and she said we would like to do the parents or whatever. And so Geneva was like, "Okay, let's go." And so the doctor was like, "No, I'd rather have it from Geneva. Let's take your blood or whatever." And so Will was like, "Well, she don't like needles, so let's go ahead and take my blood." So then she was like, "No, Geneva, can I talk to you for a second?" And he was like, "Wait a minute, what's going on? If you said the parents, why can't I give blood or whatever?" So Geneva wanted to say, "Oh no, what's going on?" Like she put her foot down. "No, why can't he give blood?" So the doctor said, "Well, the baby Anika, she's AB, and so then Will said, "Wait a minute, I'm a professor. I'm O positive, so I'm O. So if she's AB, there's no way I could give blood." And so the doctor was like, "Exactly." So then all of a sudden it pans to Geneva, and she's just like this. And then that's where season 1 ends. Y'all, I hope they hurry up and come back, because you know that Tyler Perry shoot everything in 24 hours basically. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, about a week, 24 hours, you know how it go. Anyway, with the bad wigs and bad shoes and stuff they be having on. But anyway, I can't wait to season 2, because like I said, it was a messy good time. And thank you for joining me. I want to see what you guys think of this season and everything that went down in this episode. Let me know. Thank you again. Comment, like, subscribe. There'll be more coming soon.
And plus she do shows. She cover all like hands, knees, and toes. Don't lollygag, no, she just rolls. Then it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Woo. Ha. Said it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Tanesha's tip coming all 3 speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows.